Can you guys hear me? Does this work? That work too? No? All right. I think the part I'm most excited about being here is now if a creative comes to me and they're like, I don't really do mornings, I can say, that's bullshit. I showed up to an event with 100 people that voluntarily showed up before 9 a.m. on a Friday. So I'm also going to take a picture because I'm going to need proof. Hold on a second. All right, count of three. I need you to look like you are on a roller coaster. You ready? 1, 2, 3. You! Awesome. Oh, you probably wonder what this is. It's Moment. It's a new product called Moment. It's available for pre-order for $80. It's a great company. They got a wide and a telly. Actually designed by Eric. Eric, you want to give us a stand up? Yes. My goal today was to embarrass him a little bit, so I'm hoping he turns a little bit red. Young designer, 25, came out of the University of Washington. I think he's the next Johnny Ives, but I'm kind of biased in my opinion. But all right, so excited to be here. David asked me to come and share, and I was like, sweet, I can talk about creativity and entrepreneurship, how creative they are. And he's like, he's talking about failure. I'm like, fuck, seriously? I didn't quite know what he was getting at, but then I kind of realized, I think he wanted me to stand up here and cry. So I think he was going for, can I find someone emotional that's willing to cry so they can all leave and go, oh my God, I went to this event and this guy got up here and cried. It was so awesome. I'm not going to cry, just so you know. Might tear up a little bit. So let's talk about failure. I really like the definition of it. I think it kind of depends on what your goals and what you want to accomplish, and people make up stuff. So I'm going to put that on the side for a second. I'm going to relate it to something totally different. Who here has had their heart totally broken? Wow, that's a lot. Like totally crushed. Like when I say that, your chest tightens up and the hair on your arm stands up, and you can still remember that emotion. How many? That's pretty good. And I actually bet there's some of you that are actually lying to yourself and not admitting it. Now I want you to take that feeling, and I want you to multiply. I want you to think that, imagine that feeling in front of 50 people that you hired, hundreds, all your friends and family have known you for that single relationship. You spent maybe 10 years on that relationship. Everyone in an industry knows you for that relationship. That's what happened to me. I got fired from my own company, something I built for 10 years. Started as a college kid, actually younger than you, Eric. Started 21, first job, ran the thing for 10 years, built like a 50-person, $30 million company. Got my heart just like crushed. And it was like, I can still remember. I still remember the moment, what happened, the emotion around it, like it was yesterday. What was interesting is when it was over, it like stopped. Like I wasn't just asked to step down. I was like removed from my own company. I couldn't go back. I couldn't talk to the people there. It was like I had stolen and lied and robbed, and I did none of that. And when it was over, like the emails, there were no more emails. No one called. There was no like get up at 8 and be somewhere for a meeting and have like important stuff to do. The only thing I had to do was get from my bedroom to my living room. Right? Because I realized if I stayed in bed too long, you can only sleep so many hours. My wife's like, okay, let's go. Let's get out of bed. And in those mornings, I remember like people would go to work and you see people go commute and like I had nothing to do. I was like, shit, for the first time, I had like nothing. Didn't need to go anywhere, didn't need to be anywhere. And so I literally just started writing. Like I got out my laptop and just started writing all this stuff down. And I just started like from the beginning, like the stories and what happened and like all the characters I met. And out of the writing, I started to see some patterns. I started to learn some things. I started to kind of realize what I had been through. But even then, like, I was sitting there at 8 o'clock every day going, what the hell am I going to do every day? And so thankfully, my wife and I love to travel. So we went to Mexico, Brazil, went to Italy. I know it's not that bad, right? Even then, like, something wasn't quite right. And my wife's a personal trainer. She teaches yoga, and she's like, here, try some meditations. And so it wasn't until I started meditating that I actually could start to feel like there was this block, and I could start to feel the parts coming, the pieces, right? These emotions, these feelings. Basically, over 10 years, I just put everything, running a company, like, just like shut it down, right? In 10 years, I had built a company, I had taken it apart, I had rebuilt it, I had lost my mom, I had broken up with a girl I'd dated for a long time, like, all this stuff was just like in this block. And so it took me months, like maybe 8, 6, 7 months, it's probably more like 8, 9 months, to kind of get through everything that I had learned. And out of it, I started to realize that there were lessons I had learned. So I started to decide, okay, I'll write. I'll put some stuff up. Like, I'll try to get myself back up there. Some of those I was terrified. Like, some of the posts I would write, I was like, shit, man, this could be horrible. I actually got the best response. Every time it was emotional and put myself out there, people responded. But for the first time, I actually hadn't failed. Like, I built a $30 million company, which apparently is bigger than most entrepreneurs ever make it. I made it, if you're playing a game, I made it way far into the levels of the game. I still got fired from a company, and I kind of crashed the plane. But I actually hadn't failed, even though it felt like I personally had failed, because I'd never lost at anything. Like, grew up playing soccer, won at everything possible, right? School, easy, no problem. Started this thing, we were successful. We were the fastest growing company in Washington. Like, they have those annual awards or whatever, and you're like, and you go to them, and they're like counting, they literally count down from 100 to 1 for like an hour and a half. 99, 98, and like we were number 1, and the company still ended up bankrupting, right? So my resume is like, hey, started a company that went bankrupt. Yay, awesome. But out of it, I learned an incredible amount. Go from the beginning all the way to the end. Personally, on a company, I learned probably more than I ever thought. When I started, I literally remember saying, all right, if I learn a bunch, the worst case that happens at 21, you go back and live with your parents, which is actually pretty good. Free food, free rent. I was like, give it a shot, but it just kept going. But I think out of that whole experience, when you asked me to talk about failure, I think there were kind of 3 really big lessons I learned from that, and I wanted to share them today. The first one I realized is around purpose. I didn't really have a purpose. Like, I started as a 21-year-old. It's like my first job. I took this, I want to be a professional soccer player. I no longer going to be one of those, so let me just put all of that into, entrepreneurship. And I realized I didn't really have a purpose. And so you guys are going to leave here at 10 o'clock. You're going to go sit down at a desk, and, I would challenge you to think about, why the hell am I sitting here? Right? It's pretty easy to come up with an excuse. I got to make money. I got to pay the bills. You bought a car you probably couldn't afford, or you took a house you couldn't afford. And now you're like, shit, I got to pay for this stuff. It's a terrible excuse. It took me a while. It's not going to happen at a Friday morning sitting down on a laptop and be like, what's my purpose? Right? It took some traveling. It took, my wife and I, we were up in Italy doing the Walk of the Gods. Anyone done that? It's amazing. Up in Positano, we were just talking about our values, what we believed in, and out of it, kind of realized my own purpose is to create companies. Really, I'm here because at the end of the day, my superpower is to bring people together. Random collections of people and to lead them. But it took me a long time to figure that out. And so I think for you, I would really think about why the hell you are doing this. If someone had told me that first company was going to take 10 years, I would have been like, whoa, wait, hold on a second. Right? Because stuff you create can kind of keep going. That's the first lesson. The second one is you actually have to define what success is. Right? A lot of times people are successful, they're going to start something, they're just going to keep going until it ends. Because you ain't going to quit, you ain't going to give up. And I actually didn't define success. Was success to get a company off the ground? Was success to win a market? Was success to I just didn't define it. So at the end of the day, someone needed to fire me for me to actually step back and realize, someone needed to break up with me big time so that I could actually realize, okay, wait a second, how do I actually fall in love? Right? And so I think as you think about how you define success, it'll be very clear. It doesn't have to be big. Big doesn't mean that it's great. 3 people working on products they love every day, passionate about it, changing people's lives, success, done. If Contour could have been a $30 million company, a $20 million company with 20 people having a great time building great products, success wasn't going to be. We raised money, and investors want you to win, and you can't win unless you raise enough money. But I think the second thing is just define success. And I think that's personal, and it's always tied to the rewards you can buy with your credit card and stuff, unfortunately, a little bit. But I would definitely think about your own definition of success. And I had a third one, and now I'm blanking on the third one. I think the third one I wanted to talk about was, I'm a big believer if you let it, life will unfold in just mysterious, wonderful ways. A lot of times things you try to force things, like being creative, you actually can't force it. The vision for creating a company, it just happens, organically over time. You tinker with stuff until you start to see the pieces and the parts. You can't force it. You can't be like, we're at a business plan today, and I'm going to create the next Apple on my piece of paper. It just ain't going to happen. And I think if I look back, all the people in my life today, they all got there for the most amazing, different story. My wife, I met at the end of 2008 after I'd taken the company from 19 to 12 people and lost my mom. And I got this relationship. I'm single first time ever. I ain't dating anybody, or I'm not in a relationship. And then I meet her. Nope, this woman's amazing, right? This guy, Eric, he was an intern. Intern out of the University of Washington, joined Contour, ended up doing all the design, and now we started Moment. There's a guy who's helping us, a good friend, and at the time, 10 years ago, I was learning to build a company by reading Inc. magazine, or Fast Company. You guys read those? Yeah, I didn't know shit that I was doing. I barely know what I'm doing now, but less than. And so I literally would read those to learn, right? And they have their annual designer awards or whatever. This guy flipping through, and it's the mind reader, guy from Portland running Ziba Designs. I'm shit, I'll call him. So I cold called him and said, hey, we're doing this little company. Will you design the product? They pretty much said no, because there was 2 of us in the file cabinet, right? And they wanted $400,000. But eventually they actually said yes, amazingly. And so now we're good friends. But if I hadn't have picked up the phone and called him from a cold call in a magazine, we wouldn't be friends. And so when I look back now, I'm a big believer in the relationships around you. At the end of the day, I realized after that company failed, all that mattered at being were the people. Some of those people I will never speak to again, thankfully. I probably have nothing nice to say. I'll probably end up in jail. But then the rest, I think, have come to the surface, and I've tried to spend a lot of time on taking care of those relationships. I kind of realized first time around, I thought it was all about me, in a sense, what I was trying to accomplish and the company I wanted to build and things I wanted to do. And it took a while, some writing, and I kind of realized, shit, it's not about me at all. It's actually about everybody else. And so if I want to be a great leader, it's actually about the collection of people and them. And so this time around, I'm trying to spend a whole lot more time just on the relationships. And so in my year and a half, year off, some of those relationships are now that go skiing with a guy, and now he's going to invest in what we're doing. Cool. I didn't go skiing with him thinking he was going to invest. Just went skiing because I got to know him and liked him. And so I think the third lesson I learned is if you let it, life will just unfold in these amazing ways that you can't force. And that's my lessons from failure. I think Dave's going to make you guys talk to each other now, but I always find that my story is like a car accident. Everybody's like, tell me more, what happened? How did it go? So I'm happy to answer any of those questions if you want all the details.
Yeah, so let's take just a couple minutes. As an introvert, I hate this part of the the morning.
Funny.
But
what's funny is that most creatives, actually most entrepreneurs are introverts.
Yeah.
You never know that. Most entrepreneurs are introverts. Lesson for the day. Here he goes.
all right. So let's spend about 5 minutes talking amongst yourselves, and I don't know, what's a good question to start the conversation off with? Turn to the person on your left or right and ask them.
If we want,
not to put you on the spot or anything, but yeah.
The topic of failure. I think a big one is just around putting yourself out there, making yourself vulnerable. So I guess why don't you try to tell someone the last time you made yourself vulnerable? That'll be a nice awkward conversation. Yeah, the guys look at, oh shoot, I got to share with a girl my vulnerability. The guys are the worst. Getting a collection of guys to share their feelings, good luck. Yeah.
Oh, my buddy Neff. Do you know Neff?
Yeah. He saw Eric the other day. He came in.
Yeah, he came over after he came in and saw you guys.
Cool.
I don't know if you saw the shot of the Space Needle.
Eric saw it. I didn't see it.
I live right down the street.
That's from your place?
Yeah,
That's
rooftop.
awesome.
It's just I put money on it. It's the best view of Seattle.
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
That's rad. I'll go look at the picture now.
Yeah. I know Neff, and he was traveling around.
Yeah, he was coming through and came by. And he's from LA, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Dude, they're awesome.
Thanks, man. We're doing Kickstarter now. People can pre-order it. It just takes us a month to deliver it. Fully in stock, it'll be September. Where you can fully in stock, where you can buy it and get it that same day. It'll be September. But for now, people are pre-ordering and we deliver in August. We have 2, a wide and a telly. super small. I think he just reached out to us. I think he saw what we were doing, and it was pretty cool. Pretty cool. We traded some emails, and yeah, it was all him. I find my stuff, this stuff's usually more Q&A than it is. Like, it's hard to talk for 20 minutes on like, sure. You can until it comes out. You can do some math and try to estimate based on the rumors, but you don't know. We tried to separate the mounting device from the lens. There's a plate that attached to the lens, to the phone. We have a different plate for every phone. So that way the mounting plate just gets, it's universal, it can work, doesn't matter if you have a Galaxy, whatever, just different sizing. And then the other part's the lens, so it'll depend on what the optics they have and the sensor decision. Hopefully they work. We may have to make changes, I don't know. That's the only negative. We're going to end up building things way beyond the lens, like the lens just to start. That gets us away from being so dependent on the phone, but for now we're dependent on it. That's all Eric, man. It's all his eye as far as like pulling. And we've been fortunate, like, there's a passionate community of mobile photography enthusiasts, and they love to use the product. And so we're just been putting them in the right hands, and they're the ones capturing it. Our job is just to curate it. Curated stuff. Yeah. Repeat it. Yeah, we've seen that.
All right, you guys, let's stop talking about your vulnerabilities.
We opened the emotion.
I know you.
Vulnerability
you
trap's
opened up
been
a
open.
can of worms.
Let it out.
You know, nobody's crying right now, so. All right, thanks, guys. So let's go straight into Q&A. Who's got questions for Mark?
Yep. Yeah, in the white. Yeah.
As an entrepreneur, when do you know when a business is going to succeed in your true life, or whether or not you've been going down a path and knowing when to stop?
Is this for your friend, or is this? Everybody hear the question? This question was, as an entrepreneur, how you know when it's going to be successful or keep going down the path? I think you never actually know. I think one of the challenges of entrepreneurs, you actually never have the answer. A lot of times entrepreneurs think that they need to have the answer. My analogy is like a Rubik's Cube, that you're always changing and moving, and basically you're trying to get the parts to align in the short term without killing yourself in the long term. And so it's actually very stressful just because of that. And I think when an entrepreneur actually approaches it from this entire thing as a thesis, this entire project is a thesis, and you're going to try a variety of things, and from that you're going to learn and get better, and is a very different approach. When you're like, it has to be this way, and we're going to do these things, and it's going to go this way, and you build a financial model this way, and it's never going to go any of that direction. And so you end up spending all of your energy around this perfect plan, and then it falls apart. And then you basically end up spending all your energy fixing it. And versus the other way of saying it is like, I have no idea if it's going to be successful. I don't even know the answer. Here's what I know is working today. Can we keep trying some more of those things until you look up and it's either a success or you realize that, this just didn't work. I think one of the things in me getting fired, it gave me a better perspective of like just don't just keep doing it because you said I started this, I gotta finish it. Like it's okay to step back and say, we tried a bunch of stuff, it didn't work, and now I'm gonna try something else. Like I shouldn't have spent 10 years there, to be honest. I should have spent half my time there, learned a bunch of things, set my foundation, and then went on to the next thing. But it is what it is. So I think it's a very hard answer to know. Yeah.
When you're starting an idea or a business or company, whatever, do you think it's about the idea or the product or the drive to just go?
The question is around if it's about the idea, the product, or the drive to go. I'm not a believer in ideas. I think ideas are kind of bullshit, to be honest. I think what you want to understand is a problem you really want to solve. So we, for example, Moment, are very passionate about photography. We think the world is better off with beautiful pictures. And we spend a lot of time with people. We watch how people use cameras, watch people use photography. Like we went and studied the history of how people use lenses and cameras. And like, it's very much, I mean, designers here, design thinking, customer journeys, like we're huge believers in that. And if you get passionate about a set of problems you want to solve, there's two we've identified we're going to go really solve and build a whole family of products around. Then you start seeing, oh my God, there's 19 ideas. There's like 19 products I can make. When people get stuck on like, here's my idea, and it's this widget or this first app, and I've named everything around the app, and I'm just iterating on the idea, like Twitter should be done, right? It's a little 140 character messaging thing. Like the more crap they slam onto it is just stupid, right? But they hired a bunch of people, so now you got to put more stuff onto it and raise a bunch of money. So I don't really believe in ideas. I believe in like understanding a problem and being really passionate about the problem, and then you end up building a lot of products within that. But you do need drive. Like one of the traits for a successful entrepreneur is tenacity. They just ain't going to give up. And so I think you do need that element, but that I think is separate from understanding customer problems and needs and building great products. Yep.
How do you fail? And what I mean by that is like, do you have like a process for afterwards, like a cleanup process where, yeah, I just failed, wherever you just tell everyone it's over, it's done, I failed, and don't worry about it. Like, how do you deal with the relationships that were affected? Do you like write everyone a note?
Is this also for your friend? A process for failure? I have no idea. They basically fired me, and 9 months later the company bankrupt. So like, I think a process of a company bankrupting, having to clean that up, is very different than I was gone. Like, cut from the team. Like, I'm out.
What about
Right?
the process for rebuilding after that? I'm sure there was some element of betrayal, of shame, of feeling like you ruined.
Oh, so this is awesome. Also for your friend. Hold on. Let me get to that, because let me answer this stuff. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to how you treat people. And if you're going to build companies, the thesis is that you're going to try something. You're going to put yourself out there. You're going to try to create something that doesn't exist today. Like the investors, everybody getting involved inherently actually knows that. And so being able to frame it that way, it's like, look, we put our best effort. We did everything we could. It didn't work. Right? And so I think for people to separate their emotions from the reality of what they're accomplishing is really hard. But I think if you can separate those emotions, you realize we're all a collection of people that want to do great work. Everybody wants to do great work. And yeah, it's disheartening or it breaks your heart that it didn't work and the dream and all these things you come together. For whatever reason, it just didn't work. It's okay. Let's get up and try something else. Right? Let's try the next thing. And I think for me, what I did, I just kept the relationships. Like I didn't badmouth anybody. I didn't go and be angry at stuff. I just was trying to be reflective and honest of like what things I did right, what things I did wrong. Write about those, talk about those, and try to be holistic in what I learned from that. So now when people are like, okay, first question I get is, oh, what happened, particularly from an investor, what happened with Contour? Like, tell me the story. And it's very easy for me to talk about what we learned, what we did right, what we did wrong, and what the core lessons were. And they're like, okay, they've learned from that. Like, I'm actually a better entrepreneur today than I was 10 years ago. Like, shouldn't have invested in me 10 years ago. I'd probably invested in me today. All right? So I think there isn't really a process. I think if you treat people right and you do the right thing, everything else will take care of itself. Let me get to this. You
You kind of answered. I mean, it is about, I think, separating this sort of like exacerbated emotion, I think, that
Right.
I would imagine you're going to your head in those first few weeks, months, or whatever, really thinking like that it's much bigger than it is.
Usually it's much,
Everyone's
yeah.
knows, right?
Usually when you're this close to it, it's very hard to see it. It was easier when I was away from it and not there every day. And when you're actually forced out, it's actually easier because it's like over, like tomorrow. Like a bankruptcy and cleaning it up is actually much harder and messier and takes more time. There's legal things associated. But I think the element that ends up coming in always is greed. I think that's a dangerous element. And I think the element of greed is really hard for some people to really grasp with. I mean, I've seen what you end up having often in little companies is you usually have an investor and they're a board member, and they really struggle to do their two different duties because there are two different duties. I'd give you my dollar, I'm going to find my dollar and I'll fight for my dollar, but at the same time, their job is to do what's best for the company and the people. A lot of people struggle with that. At the end of the day, it usually ends up being about them and their investment and their time and how you let them down and all this other bullshit. And so I think helping people separate the emotions from what actually is the facts, better off. Yeah.
First of all, my brother is still using his contour, so
That's awesome. That's a legacy thing now, man. That's sweet.
he's out there shooting and making stuff, capturing the world around him. And second, what advice would you give those who are dealing with the failure and trying to get over that and get back and recondition themselves to make getting back out into the world?
I think failure is a very personal thing at the end of the day. I think it's going to come down to you personally, how you feel, and when you're ready. I think I've seen a lot of people that have ended a company and they went straight back into another one, or like take a relationship, right? They got heartbroken, they went straight back and dated the next person. Like a friend of mine, she's married, divorce, cheated. She got cheated on, heartbroken, and like the next week she's like dating the new person. You're just like, whoa, hold on a second, train wreck. And so I think for you, it's a personal question. It's like, when are you ready to step up again? I think, unfortunately, the hard part in our society is very few actually are creators. Very few are willing to put themselves out there. Because to create, you have to actually get out and have an opinion. You have to actually stand up and say, this is what I believe in. This is what I want to do. I'm going to try something that hasn't been done. That's freaking hard, right? Because it's very easy to tear that thing apart. Like, most people just like, where's my job? Let me have my paycheck, right? What have you? And so I think for you, it's just, when are you ready to step back up and try something again? And they start as little things. Like, Moments started as a project. A few people in a room iterating on stuff, and like, okay, we're starting to find our feet again. And like, wow, we put it on Kickstarter. We really want this thing. Okay, maybe there's something here. So I think going into it, I'm a big believer in lots of little projects until you kind of figure out, actually, I'm loving what I'm working on here. And so I think it's just a personal question of when you're ready. I find travel is the way I find that stuff. Yeah.
Kind of a follow-up to your many products that you talked about to
Sure.
find out what you're all about. I like what you said about the Rubik's Cube and changing your company.
First people are leaving. There they go. Out. Done. 10 o'clock meeting. Can't be late. Hurry up. Sorry, Rubik's Cube product.
So Rubik's Cube and kind of molding your company, keeping really a problem that you're trying to
Yeah.
solve rather than the product.
Yeah.
And one thing I'm kind of concerned about is freaking out my clients and having a bunch of changes or changing a lot over, or what I think is a lot over a period of time.
Yep.
And I'm wondering, in your own company, I imagine that you have a bunch of ideas. Do you just say, no, that doesn't fit with the problem that I'm trying to solve, and you just not deal with those? Or do you still kind of,
Seems like you're asking like two questions. All right, so there's like the client, they're changing a lot of stuff, problem, right?
yeah, well, with under that umbrella,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's an issue you deal with, but
Well, I haven't built a creative company, so it's hard for an agency model, but I can imagine that would be horrible. But basically, I think I actually believe that companies should have that internally, to be honest. I mean, I believe that if your DNA of what you're building is about creating, then that should be in your organization. Like, you should have the design and engineering, like if that, but a lot of companies aren't that, right? So I don't know how to kind of solve that. They're always changing things. I think internally, the easiest way is we use things like a customer journey where you kind of map out the problems so people understand these are the problems we're solving, and then they can get super creative within those. How do I solve those problems, right? In the business level, I like having like, here's the 3 things we're doing. They're big things. We're only doing 3 things. If the stuff you're doing is not in one of these 3 things, we've agreed on these are the 3 most important things. Usually as a leader, you can say, these are the 3 things we have to do and focus on because they're really, really important. Okay, great. Now let's brainstorm and be creative on all the ways we could deliver on those 3 things. And then you can get the energy of the team, because people want to be creative, right? You can get the energy of the team around those 3 things, as long as you've set these are the 3 things. And then if people are like, periodically you're checking in, like every week, every 2 weeks, your team's kind of working together, you realize, man, we're doing all this other stuff that doesn't fit in the 3. Like, either something's wrong. Either people aren't saying no, or you set the wrong 3 things. That, the crude way helps. Yeah.
With either Contour or your new you're working on, kudos to the young designer.
Yeah, young designer. He doesn't like any fame, so this is great. We can embarrass him. Is he gonna stand up again? He's just gonna shake his head at me. Go ahead.
As you noted, it's all about a need, and I believe that as well. You see a problem, you fill that problem. As you're starting to fill that problem, and you're finding, okay, one product turns into 3, turns into the 19 you referenced. How are you kind of organizing those products and focusing on the ones that are either the lowest hanging fruit? Is that how it's done? set is going to fill, and kind of building those blocks together?
That was a long question. I think what you're saying is how do you kind of set priorities for those multiple projects, multiple products? So there's different ways to end up filtering. One of the biggest filters is ability to execute. So with on the, the Apollo, the movie, right? They dump all the crap on the table. It's like, this is what we got to work with. I'm a believer that the constraints, if we only have 4 people, what are we going to work on, is actually a great constraint. And so I think that's a team discussion of like, here's what we agreed to work on. Great, with this other product, can we really take that on? I think a group being honest, and the more a team works together, and they're honest about what they can actually get done, the clearer that becomes. So I think that's one level of filter. From a product decision, I'm a big believer, people call it an MVP, whatever you want to call it. In physical products, it's the fastest path to cash. Like whatever is the most basic need that you can deliver really, really well. This is a great lens with glass, that's it. Right? Like, yeah, do we want to put sensors on and all this other cool stuff? And like, absolutely. But it took us a while to get it down to, it's got to be this, get it to market, drive cash. Now the business, okay, it has some feet, now some legs, now we can look at the next thing, right? So I'm a big believer in when you're kind of laying out the strategy, it's like, what can I deliver on today? What's the fastest path to drive cash into a business so that I can actually put that money into the next thing? So if that helps. But in the back, yeah. Yep.
So listening to you talk about your experience, do you think today that you getting fired from your company is defined as a failure in your life? Or would you say that because you learned so much and that was kind of a catalyst in you learning and becoming the person that you are today, that perhaps you not leaving the company after 5 years is perhaps a failure? Or is it a failure at all?
I think in the end, you basically had a place people love to work. They were passionate about products that people still use. Success. I don't think it ever could have been. I think in a failure in some eyes of people that invest. Usually, when people invest some amount of time or some amount of energy, then it's a failure, right? So if employees felt like, man, I put all this time and energy and it didn't work out, they may see it as a dream that didn't get realized. Investors usually is one that makes it clear cut if failure or not, right? They're like, I put my money in and I didn't get my money back. Fail. Right? There's no like, you can't cash progress at the bank, right? There's no like, hey, we did pretty good. All right. It's a really expensive roller coaster ride, right? So I think for me, no, I think retrospect is, me personally, I like to win at stuff. Like, it sucked to lose at stuff. And I think it was just a lesson learned, so, yeah.
How do you navigate the transition from founder to CEO?
You're going with that question. I've talked about this. So you asked about founder to CEO. Anybody a founder? Anybody a CEO? The answer's like, yeah. They're actually 2 different things. I learned being a founder, being a CEO are very different things. I think early on, the founder is about this magic and about getting people to believe in something, and like you're creating something that doesn't exist, right? And so I think that is a skill set and takes this tenacity and things that you can do to make it happen. And when you apply those same practices to now you have a company and you have to be a CEO, it's a disaster. And so at the end of the day, at some point you cross this threshold, either because you've raised money and now they expect you to be professional and now your job is to be a CEO, and yet you have a job. Your job is to return capital. Your job is to build an organization. It's very different than being a founder, right? Being a founder, you're like creating something nobody yet believes in, right? And so at some point when there is a business or there is a structure here, your job is to be a CEO. And you have to be passionate about different set of things. Like as a CEO, you're passionate about systems and organization and structure, and how do I take what is this system and make it much larger and add more people to it and get it to perform. As the founder, you're probably like a hub and spoke model a little bit, which is like, I kind of do everything and I see everything, I got my hands in everything, and there's this early creation process that only you as the founder can really get going. And so I think they are 2 very, very different things. You have to be passionate, decide where your passion is. My passion is the first part. I'm not as passionate about, I realize now, 40 people make a system run. Yeah. It's not as my passion as much. Like, I love there's 4 of us in a room on a piece of paper. I like that more. So I think they're 2 very different things. Yeah?
You talked about kind of your joy and like bringing people together.
Sure.
Teams. I wonder if you had any stories about the decision to remove people from teams.
I think, so I wrote this post on Inc. magazine on the website, and what's funny is that there's an editor, and you get back your piece you read, and it's like all red, and you're like, what the hell? Took a little bit of practice like I used to how she edited, but she took this piece, and it was about, if you're building a startup, what's the one question you ask in an interview to see if they're a startup leader? Of course, she takes it and she changes it to natural-born leader, puts this egotistical male picture. It's a female editor, by the way. A bunch of he's in the thing, and by the end, it was like, oh, shit. Like, it took off, and like, oh, I got a bunch of hate mail being a sexist. I was like, it's a female editor. I didn't do it. But basically the question is, tell me about the last person you fired. And so from that, you actually can learn a lot, because what you end up figuring out in that journey of the discussion is, was the person surprised or not? If they were, you failed as a leader, right? People shouldn't be surprised. Then you want to understand the emotions around it and understand, like, were they empathetic? How did they help the person? Like, so from that question, I can tell everything about you as a startup leader, because I believe in order to build a team, you have to take it apart. Usually, if you hire kind of your first executive level of team, usually it's an accuracy of 40%. 4 out of 10 are going to work. 6 out of 10 aren't going to work, which is horrible, right? And I think part of that problem is, I think a lot of teams are built wrong. I think there's in organizations, I have marketing, I have sales. You don't have any of that stuff. What you really have is, we need to accomplish these things. Who's going to work on those projects, period. I don't care if you're a designer or you're more marketing minded or you can sell stuff. Like, I'm a big believer early on is getting a collection of people to be able to move and shift and help in different areas. And then I think some of those problems go away. And out of that, your job is to turn them into leaders. Like, some people are really great individual contributors. It doesn't mean they should lead a group of people. Just because you're the best player on the field does not mean that you're the captain of it. Unfortunately, anybody play soccer? Anyone see Messi? Unbelievable player. He's not a leader. It's heartbreaking. He's not, like, World Cup final, he's not the guy that leads his team. He's just not. And like, yeah, he's the captain, but he's not the real heart and soul of the thing. So I think people get stuck into that. So I'd challenge you as you build teams to understand what's everybody's superpower, what are they really passionate about, and then help them learn to be leaders. Like, if they really are passionate about that, then help them learn how it's not about you, it's about everybody else. The first question you ask, how can I help you, right? Not, what work do I have to do today, right? And so I think those are the inherent things that it's the foundation before 10 people, critical. You get that foundation wrong, fucked, screwed. All right? Hope that helps. Question? Yeah?
How do you deal with things that you want that are potentially well beyond your grasp? So maybe you're making moments, but what you really want to make is a Hubble space telescope.
Oh, that's actually what we're making. How the hell did you figure that out?
Do you aim for the Hubble, or do you use moment to get there? I mean, what's the best path? Like, as you said, MVP is one thing, but this may be.
I don't know. Does this look like the Hubble telescope? Yeah. Yeah. I think it's about, you basically, at the end of the day, you have a vision, which is like, someday we will be able to do these things. We see this big opportunity. But that's very different from, here's what we're working on today. Like, unless you have the power to walk in and raise $1 billion in cash, and like you have a reputation of being able to take nothing and all of a sudden have 200 people working on it, people will fund you to do that. And even if you fail, they're like, that's okay. We tried to make the Hubble telescope. Fine, go for that. Most people aren't that. Like Nest, familiar with Nest? It's Tony Fadell. Like, he can walk in and raise $80 million on a prototype and hire 100 people, the best engineers from Apple he worked with, and go sell a business for $3 billion that was doing way less cash than that, right? Like, that's a very unique person. He probably could walk in and try to pitch making the Hubble telescope, right? I can't, but he could. So I think it just depends on, I'm a big believer. Big vision, everybody kind of knows where we're going at a high level, and then it's like one step at a time. Questions? Good. Last one. We're in the back.
What would you call, other than just your drive, your primary motivator?
My primary, to like get, just to build companies? Or?
Like, when you think about what really motivates you,
I find at the end of the day,
obviously not money, it's
that's what I tell my wife. Honey, it's not about the money. I think my wife's like the happiest of all her friends. She like makes the least amount of money, and she's the happiest. I was like, yeah, perfect. That's awesome. Questions around drive. I think at the end of the day, you gotta be passionate about what you're doing. Like, if you don't like the area or the space or the problem set, then why the hell are you doing it? So,
I was wondering about you.
me, it's passion. Like, yeah, I mean, like, I find areas that I'm interested in, right? I find collections of people that I like to work with. I think this time around, my analogy is like your taste buds, right? Like, the food you eat today is very different than you ate as a kid, right? You've developed what you like, what you don't like. You've developed when you want something, what it feels like. Oh, I want Thai food tonight, or I want sushi. As an entrepreneur, that just takes time to develop your palate. First time around, I didn't know what I wanted, who I wanted, what I liked. Collectively, I had 30 people that were all different, so I was learning. So I think, for me, I realized at the end of the day, it's about being passionate what you're working on. You got to really, really like the people you're spending time with. Like, you got to, for me, if I want to be able to have coffee in the Sunday morning with the person, then okay, then I want to work with them. If I don't, then not this time. And so I think those are probably the two things that guide me. Okay, yeah, back.
Okay, last question about being an introvert entrepreneur. Most people don't know that.
Yep.
How did that play into the process of addressing your failures? Did you
going for the emotion here? We're going to try to make me cry or something? I think everybody's different. You can build a company as an extrovert or an introvert. I think usually what you find is that people are passionate about like creating something. They're thinking about it a lot. Like they don't usually, like I'm not that great with like group brainstorming, right? Because like I need to internalize something and think about it and kind of craft it. So I think for me, you know, that process was just personal. So the writing, some of the stuff I published, some stuff I'll never publish, was just to kind of understand what I went through and decide I'm ready to actually get up and try to start a company again, right? So I think, I don't think the introvert-extrovert actually plays into it. I think at the end of the day, usually an introvert, when they have to be a leader, gets tired because there's a lot of, most of your job is like out in front of people, like leading and getting people to work together. And so, you know, you're not going to find me like Friday night calling up all my buddies and like, or our friends and going out. Like, I'm exhausted. And so I think usually introverts usually get pretty tired with the role of playing an extrovert. So. Sweet. I think that was my last question. Awesome. It's called Moment Lens. You can all buy one. Expect. I will be tracking the website. I have all of your information, so I will now email spam you.